Hello folks, with this video I'm going to show you how I am hopefully going to fix my Definitive Technologies center speaker, which was huffing and puffing all by itself without any signal going through it even. And I think what's happening is the problem that every one of these powered speakers has eventually, which is the capacitors, the large capacitors that are on the amplifiers inside tend to swell up and crack and so on. So I already looked, and the capacitor, at least one of them, seems to be cracked. So I believe that's what the problem is going to be. Anyways, this is a Definitive Technology CS-8060HD speaker, high definition center channel speaker. It works great, but again, lately it started huffing and puffing, and so I need to do something about it because it's annoying. So this is the one that has the built-in subwoofer as well. I have already gotten pretty far along in taking it apart, so I'm kind of going to describe how I got to this point, and then I'll take you through the rest of it while I do it, which I think I figured out how to do it. So basically what I started with is removing the sides. They just pull out. Basically they are held in place with these little pressure, let me get some light over here, feet right there, okay, and they just go inside these holes, so these pull out very easily. The next thing is the mesh is held together with these pull strings, so you just kind of undo the pull string, pull the little tab in the center forward, and then the whole thing pulls out and kind of loosen it up. Once that's done, this decorative piece of plastic here needs to come off as well, and essentially you just pry it gently, just kind of grab it from the corners and start lifting it up as eventually it comes out. Basically it's just a little lip over here that goes into a groove, and you'll see that the screen comes out, and it was already ripped like that when I lifted this out, so hopefully that's normal. But in any case, this is going to be kind of a pain to put it back because it's going to have to be straightened out and so on. Next thing I did is I took out this panel in the back. I actually started by doing this, and this is just simply a bunch of wood screws that go all the way around. So I was hoping to pull that out easily, but that wasn't the case. As you can see here, let me get my light again. As you see here, this is where the amplifier is located. And so basically the amplifier is right there. You see those 4 holes? There are 4 more wood screws that are in there that hold it onto that little block of wood that you see in the back over there. So again, I took this 4 screws out, and I was hoping to just pull this out after unplugging these cables. These wires are very straightforward. I mean, there's 3 sets of wires. Okay, there is a white one of this as well. Let me show you where they go. The white and orange one of these wires go to these to essentially the input jacks right here. And then there is a connector that goes here, this one right here, and then there is another connector which is for the power input, and the fuse that goes right here. This is really the only, this one is really the only, I'd say, more complicated one, more delicate one. Basically, to pull that out, you have to move this lip here a little bit forward, and then the whole thing comes out. But again, do it gently, otherwise you're going to pull out the wires out of that connector. So again, I was hoping to get the amplifier out of that hole, but unfortunately, once you get everything loosened up, it doesn't fit. Okay, so there's a lip over here, there's a lip over here, and it just doesn't come out. So I realized that there has to be another way. And I think the other way is through the speaker. So to get that out, there is that and that. Okay, so once you pull the mesh forward, you will see the screen. There are 4 screws. You take those out, the mesh, the screen protector comes out. And then there is a little plastic paper disc. This is probably a little gasket. There's a bit of a sticky to it, but it comes off very easily. I managed to find essentially an area like this where you can tell there is nothing underneath, like right there, for instance. So I just put a flat base screwdriver, started lifting it, and it started coming out, no problem. It seemed to have peeled the paper a little bit over here, but again, it's no big deal. So that exposes 4 more screws, which are right here. And those are the screws that actually hold the speaker into the cabinet. So, I don't think I can do this on camera, but basically reaching through the back, oh, there we go. I should be able to lift that. So I'm gonna grab this, and off it comes, okay? So here's the speaker, nice magnet there. We'll put it next to your credit cards. Here's the sound absorption material, which kind of goes tucked around it. So I'm just gonna, I can take that out easily. It's not stapled or glued, but why bother? And here's the amplifier. And the amplifier, here are the 2 wires. There's another board under there that you can see there. That's probably a filter, a low pass or high pass filter for the tweeter and the 2 other speakers there. And again, this is the amplifier. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, I don't want to scratch the screen. So these are the 2 capacitors that are very likely the culprits. And as you can see there is a crack. This is actually, the sleeving here is actually cracked. And that's why you see that orange line there. So that probably means that this capacitor swelled up on the side. Usually they swell up on top. And I don't really feel any bubbling there. But the fact that that is cracked, it's probably an indication that that's the problem. And really, if that's not it, I don't know what the problem is going to be. If that's not it, then perhaps the problem is this board. Again, this being the amplifier board, you see the 2-channel amplifiers. So what I'm going to do is, again, replace these caps. And these are just, let's see if I can read what they are. These are 470 microfarad, 200 volt, 10 capacitors. So I'm just going to get on Mauser.com or DigiKey and see if I can order 2 of those. I'm sure that you can get them on eBay, but the quality that you put into this will definitely determine the sound, the performance of the speaker, and hopefully, of course, you don't want them to do that again. So I'm going to try to get the best quality that I can. It's just 2 parts, 2 little parts. It can't be too expensive. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to try. If the 2 capacitors don't do it, then I'm going to look for that board. But I'm pretty confident, and these should be a cheap enough that, you know, it's worth trying it. And if that's not it, then we'll figure something else out. So there seems to be a little bit of gook in there. I don't know what that stuff is, but the trick here, hopefully, well, so it is gooked up to the board as well. And I've seen other people use a soldering iron to kind of try to melt that. I can't even get in there with a soldering iron, so I'm first going to desolder the terminals right there, and then try to wiggle them out, see if I can get those out. When you put them back, obviously, make sure that you respect the polarity. This is the negative terminal of this capacitor, and this is of that one. And also, these capacitors could still hold a charge. So I've actually waited about an hour before after I shut it off the last time before getting in here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a screwdriver blade and short those 2 leads out, this one and that one, to make sure that I don't get shocked. Again, these things can hold up to 200 volts and shock you quite a bit. So to get these heat sinks out of there, I'm just going to unscrew them and try to lift them gently, because obviously this component here is holding everything together. So it's gonna be a challenge, but that's what I'm gonna do next. So to get the heatsink out of the way, I undid the 2 screws right there, like those 2, and it looks like you only have to take one out, the one that's right over the caps. And then there is a hole there that allows you to get to the screw that holds this component in place on top of the heatsink. And basically there was just a little clamp that kind of pushes on top of it and holds this backside against the heatsink. Note that there is that white ceramic paste there that is used for heat dissipation. So I mean it's still, there's quite a bit of it over there. I'm probably not going to bother, but it could be a good practice to buy some more of that and apply it on the surface before the heatsink is put back on. So now I'm going to go and try to desolder these terminals and see if I can get this glue out of there. Maybe reach in there with a blade, with an X-Acto knife, and see if I can sort of cut the bottom of it or something. All right, so how to get those things, how to desolder the leads. So I happen to have a nice Weller soldering iron. I don't have a stand for it, but here is the tip. Wet sponge and solder. And I also have a solder sucker. Okay, so push it and compress it, and basically sucks up the solder just as you melt it. So the trick here is to get the solder to melt just a little bit by perhaps even applying some additional solder to it, and then as soon as it's melted, suck it out. So let's see if I can set up this camera to show you how I do this. All right, so clean the tip of the soldering iron, get some solder flowing in there. And suck it out. The reason why you want to add some solder as well is to sort of get a bit of a bridge of heat. Okay, so you can see this hole clear the solder pretty good, but that one didn't. So basically you got to keep trying until you get the solder out. All right, so I actually raised my soldering iron to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and especially this lead and that lead are ground. In fact, that's where the negative terminal goes, the round eyelets. And so that being ground, it has a bigger mass, which dissipates more heat. So raising the temperature, keeping the solder tip on it just a couple of seconds longer than the other 2 leads seems to have done the trick. Now, I'm sure there is still a little bit of solder inside the hole, inside the barrel. So it's going to take a little bit of wiggling, and so 2 words of caution. Number 1, don't apply too much heat because you're going to burn the board and burn the pads. And number 2, when you try to wiggle these caps out of the holes, you know, just do it gently. Maybe apply more heat without applying any additional solder, and until the leads kind of break loose from the barrel. Now, these things aren't moving at all because they're glued, like I said, so I'm going to try to get an X-Acto knife and see if I can cut that glue out, break it up. So, success. I was able to reach in with a blade, a pretty long blade, and just kind of go at the glue. And I actually went right in the middle, and it cracked right up. So it is so dry that it was not a problem getting it out. So I separated the 2 caps, and then there was some glue on the bottom, but I didn't want to pry under there in order to try to loosen that up because I was afraid it would scratch the board and traces and components nearby. In fact, you probably can't see that, but there are some very small chip components. It looks like chip resistors right there next to that glue in that location. And then this dab of glue right here, again, I was able to reach in with a blade and kind of hack at it, and again, it cracked right up, not a problem. It separated pretty nicely. And then again, what was left was the glue on the surface of the board, so I kind of wiggled the caps a little bit and they came right off. But the important thing is to make sure that you get the solder out of these barrels first. And so if you don't have a solder sucker and a nice hot iron with a clean tip, you're not gonna get that out. So the next thing I'm gonna do is get online and see if I can get replacement caps. These caps actually don't look bad. They are not bubbled on the top, and I was incorrect. I thought it was a crack on one side. Instead, it was just a little bit of glue. You can see there, I was able to scrape it off, and it was just a little bit of glue that looked like the sleeving of the capacitor was cracked. So these parts don't look bad, but again, this is usually what the problem is. And really, the others that I've seen online, not this model, I haven't seen this on YouTube at all, but other people that have fixed preamped, amplified subwoofers and such, have had, you know, these caps enlarged and so on. But those, again, were really bad. They had a very loud buzzing sound and everything. This one didn't have a loud buzzing sound. It just literally huffed and puffed. It sounded like, you know, little puffs of winds every once in a while. So it's probably the fact that these are not completely bad, and that's why they don't look bad on the outside, but hopefully that's the problem. So again, I'm going to get online and get some 470 microfarad caps, 200 volts or higher, and 85 degrees C or higher. So those two parameters are parameters that you can change, increase for the better, and you know, get a reputable brand of capacitors and see what happens. So I'll be back when I get the replacement parts.